we've been kind of going all day, so we're going to call in a night in a couple seconds. But I just wanted to speak a word of encouragement over you. I got this song, Born, do you remember when our mothers met? Mama told me that they laughed. I actually got that. It's a song I wrote just about, essentially it's Jesus talking to John the Baptist through his whole life, through the series of being born of the Spirit, being in the womb, yet in the womb, and he's ministering. Jesus ministered to John the Baptist while he was yet in the womb, and John the Baptist was assigned to Mary while yet in the womb. So these unborn babies carried between the earth and the sky, sons of eternity in time. We're born of Spirit. And the whole water and the baptism of just thinking about, do you remember what our fathers spoke? Silence broke down on our knees. They say that 400 years of silence broke when Jesus heard the voice of the Father. And most of the gospel passages, I always thought of that as being like a public scene. But read it tonight before you go to bed. Read every gospel passage, and it isn't public at all. It says that Jesus looked up and he saw it. One of the gospels says that John heard it. But it's a powerful thing that Jesus saw it in this experience with his Father, and he heard his voice of his Father say that over him and bless him. And John the Baptist, the silence broke 400 years when Jesus was there, but also John the Baptist, remember his father's, when he actually spoke and believed and said, we're going to name this boy John, God opened his mouth and he could speak. So something powerful about our lives, that we're born of Spirit, that before we ever even get on the earth, we're children of divine promise. Water baptism, that God calls us to a whole new world, to a whole new life, and his Spirit, the Father, literally blesses our lives. And born of blood, that Jesus came by water and blood. That isn't the birth canal, that he came by water, by water baptism, by the blessing of the Father, and by the Spirit, that he came through that line, that he was divine, that you and I are divine, and by blood, by his sacrifice. That Jesus birthed something by his sacrifice for us. So, I was thinking about that for a while this year, and I've been like, it's kind of a bummer, when you get, when you talk about you're born of Spirit, that's an encouraging word. I could preach on it for at least 15, 20 minutes, and everybody would be very pumped. And there's lots of verses on it, you know what I mean? Lots of them, especially the Psalms, are filled with it. And, born of water is a beautiful thing, but whenever you get to the old cross thing, it's kind of a buzzkill, you know what I mean? And so that verse says, carried between the earth and sky, sons of eternity in time. Do you remember what our fathers spoke? Silence broke down on our knees. There was power in their prayers. John, do you remember what our fathers said? We were the children of their dreams. Words of acceptance split the sky. Visions of heaven filled our eyes. We were born of Spirit, born of water, born of blood. Born, child of freedom, a child of promise, a child of God. The last verse is my favorite. He's speaking to John the Baptist while John the Baptist is about to be killed. And he says, do you remember how it made us feel to be traded for a foolish lie? I was the song that danced. You were the song that healed. But neither song could satisfy. Wisdom was fighting for her life. We were the children of our time. We were born of Spirit, born of water, born of blood. Being overcomers, Just thinking about that when I got this song, it's like me and you and us. We look at Jesus, we look at John the Baptist, we look at revolutionaries, and we say, Oh, Lord, help us to live knowing with faith, that we were born in spirit. So I was reading 1 John one day, and in the Message, he actually puts it this way. He says, and this is the power that brings the world to its knees. Not only that we would know that Jesus is the Son of God in spirit and water, in baptism and in death, but that you and I would know that we are the children, the sons and daughters of the living God. Before we were ever on this earth, in our life and in our death. Whether that's the real death that we're talking about, whether you've been, you're crucified, whether you're beat up, or whether that's just the spiritual deaths that we go through. And Jesus, he ripped open the cosmos. It was like when he came into the earth, it's like if you can think of God's space being heaven and man's space being earth. When Jesus was born, when he came by water, what he did was he literally opened eternity and brought eternity into time. And that's the way it is when every word, I believe, is brought into this world. Every child. For a season, for a gestational period of time, that baby is carried between earth and sky. So a lot of times I get this when God's birthing a revelation in you, when God's birthing a revelation in me, does it all the time to me because I'm an external thinker and processor. So in fact, my brother-in-law and my wife say that I'm an introvert trapped in an extrovert's body. Because I think very deeply. That's a bad thing for an extrovert. If you're extroverted, you don't want to think too deeply. Just keep it real simple. Keep relationships simple. Keep everything simple. It's just simple. You know what I mean? But I'm introverted, so I feel my relationships are very deep. So I have to talk through things because I'm an extrovert. It's a pain in the rear, especially for others, I guess. But anyway, so this is a beautiful thing. So carry between the earth and sky. When God's giving us a revelation that hasn't been birthed yet, it's eternity in time. We're carrying eternity in time. There's tension. It's uncomfortable. You can't even put it into words yet, but it's in you. You don't know what it looks like, really. You can't really touch it. It's not really tangible. Once that baby's born and they're, 5, 6 years old, man, they're running around. You're just like, see? And everybody says, yeah, woohoo, it's awesome. But when it's inside of you, it's carried between the earth and sky. There's a